Hello everyone, welcome to Data Umbrella's webinar. I'm going to do a brief introduction and then I'll pass the mic and video to our speakers. And at the end, we'll have our question and answer session. But during the talk, if you have any questions, please leave them on the chat or on the question and answer tab, and we'll get back to them. So Data Umbrella is a community for underrepresented persons in data science, and we are a nonprofit organization. About our team, so far our team comprises of 5, and I am Beryl, a data scientist and a statistician. You can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, and GitHub. On our team, we also have Christina, Sandy, Sandra, and Reshma. We also have a code of conduct, and we are dedicated to providing a harassment-free experience to everyone. And we thank you for helping make Data Umbrella a welcoming, friendly community for all. You can support us in various ways. So one way that you can support us is by following our code of conduct and help make this a collaborative space. We also have a Discord channel where you can join and ask or answer general questions, share events, job opportunities, or other materials that are relevant. You can also donate to us. We are on Open Collective as Data Umbrella. We are also on Brevity, which is a company matched enabled platform where you can make a donation and your company matches the same. We also have a YouTube channel. You can find us on YouTube as Data Umbrella. We have posted events, video from our previous events and other relevant material that might be helpful. You can also view our video libraries. We have libraries, for example, we have a career advice library where you can find advice on data science or general tech careers. Another way that you can support us is by listening to this playlist. They will be beneficial not only to us, but also to you. For example, we have libraries and playlists on PyMC, open source, scikit-learn, data visualization, and data science for beginners. Another way of supporting us is by signing up to our monthly newsletter. We are on Substack as Data Umbrella, and we only share one newsletter per month, so we are not going to spam you. We are also on all social media platforms. You can find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We also have our website at dataumbrella.org, where you can find relevant topics, read our blogs, and also watch our videos. We have resources not only related to data science, but general resources as well related to tech and open source. We have live captioning for this particular webinar. You can click on the live captioning and get the captioning as the speakers talk. If you look at the extreme right, you can find the button where you can activate that. We also call for volunteers to work on the timestamps for this particular video. This will enable the video get more views, and it will be easier for viewers to access the video and the information they need. We have an issue on our GitHub for transcripts. So when you pick an issue, you can just comment that you're working on that. And after that, we will review it and then add it to the video. So we have other upcoming events. This Saturday on 16th, we have an event on PyTorch. On August 16th, we have an event on React. And on August 23rd, we have an event on software engineering for probabilistic programming. All our events are on Meetup, so feel free to join them. On today's talk, we have Emily and Diego, who will be presenting on how data scientists can contribute to Wikimedia projects. As I first will introduce Emily. Emily is a senior research community officer at the Wikimedia Foundation, where she focuses on supporting, growing, and diversifying the global community of Wikimedia researchers. She began her career as a data scientist in a fisheries research in both academic and government sectors. Then she transitioned full-time to nonprofit programs and community management 2 years ago, where she developed and managed Code for Science and Society Events Fund, which provides financial and programmatic support to organizers of open data science events like Data Umbrella. You can find her on LinkedIn and Twitter. Our second speaker is Diego Saez-Trumper, who is a Chilean computer scientist working as a senior scientist at the Wikimedia Foundation. He has a PhD, which he obtained in 2013 under the supervision of Ricardo. Before, Diego worked as a researcher and data scientist at several companies, including Yahoo Labs. He's also a visitor and collaborator of different universities, such as Cambridge in the UK and UCU in Ukraine. His research focuses on the usage of data science to understand and deal with the diffusion of disinformation in online platforms. You can also find him on LinkedIn, Twitter, and GitHub. Our slides are available, so if you want to click on the links to follow our speakers, feel free to do so. We have shared the slides on the handouts section. And with that, I will now hand over to Emily and then Diego, and then after that, we will have the question and answer. Please feel free to leave your questions. If you get any question in the course of the talk, just leave it in that so that you don't forget it, and we will get back to them after the speaker and with the presentation. So, Emily, you can now start presenting.
Great, thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for having us today. Our talk today will be centered on how data scientists can contribute to the Wikimedia projects. We'll start just by briefly introducing ourselves. I'm Emily, as Beryl said. I'm the Senior Research Community Officer at the Wikimedia Foundation, and I started my data science journey as a fisheries scientist in Alaska. I worked in both academia and government, and then I transitioned to nonprofit tech about 2.5 years ago. And Diego, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Emily. Yeah, hello, I'm Diego. I'm originally from Chile, but currently based in Barcelona, Spain. I have a PhD in computer science, and yeah, I've been doing research in different parts of the world, including UK, Brazil, Qatar, and Spain. And my main work in the Wikimedia Foundation at the research team is working in our program of knowledge integrity that Emily will mention later.
Great, thanks. So our outline for today, we'll talk a little bit about what the Wikimedia Foundation is. Diego will share some tools and data that are available. We'll talk about some ways that you can contribute to the Wikimedia projects and how you can find issues to contribute to. So we'll start with just a little bit of background about the foundation. Or in other words, another way to ask this question is, who operates Wikipedia? Next slide. So the Wikimedia Foundation is a nonprofit organization with about 600 staff members around the world. We are a remote first organization, so we have many staff that are outside of the United States. The foundation provides broad support to Wikimedia communities and projects, and this support comes in the form of servers, data centers, legal and communication support, and in our work, working with researchers around the world who are interested in studying various aspects of the Wikimedia projects. Importantly, the foundation does not create or modify content, nor does it define or enforce policies on the projects. So that is all community driven. These are all of the Wikimedia projects, some of which may be more familiar to you than others. The most famous of which is obviously Wikipedia. We'll go to the next slide, thanks. So today, Wikipedia is the largest encyclopedia in the history of humankind. It contains more than 56 million articles in more than 280 languages. Every month, 10 million edits are done by over 500,000 volunteer editors. And the content in Wikipedia is directly accessed and viewed 15 billion times a month. So this is a huge resource, a huge wealth of information for consumers, for readers, as well as for researchers. So we'll transition to talk a little bit about research at the foundation. So this is our research team. There are 8 of us. We are distributed between the Americas and Europe. Many of us are research scientists. We also have 1 research engineer and myself who focuses on outreach. We also have many formal collaborators, some of which are listed here. And so since we are a relatively small team, we really rely a lot on formal collaborators as well as interns, which we'll touch on later in the talk, to get a lot of our work done. Our research falls into 3 main priority areas. So our first one is addressing knowledge gaps. And this involves developing systems to identify and address gaps in content, readership, and contributors across the Wikipedia languages. Our second knowledge area or research area has to do with improving knowledge integrity. And this is where most of Diego's work lies. And this focuses on enhancing the ability of our communities to improve verifiability and detect policy violations through new technologies. And our third branch has to do with nurturing the research community. So this is our foundational work. And this centers on extending the network of researchers and tools that are available to the community to encourage a greater diversity of research questions and projects. There are white papers that are associated with our research areas, which you can find by accessing the link on the slide. This link is also available in the handout that we've provided if you'd like to learn more. And I'll just briefly touch on what makes research in this area so complex. Diego, do you mind advancing? So these are some of the Wikimedia projects that I introduced earlier in the talk. But what makes this research really complex and exciting is all of the different variables that underlie the work, such as verifiability, neutrality, transparency. We really strive to do science in an open and reproducible way. Keep advancing. Yeah, thanks. Also touching on autonomy, ownership, independence, decentralization, while making sure we're true to our mission, freedoms of thought, speech and thought, connected and open internet, and valuing privacy. On top of all of this, we're also concerned with multilinguality. So Wikipedia is available in over 280 languages. So really looking to expand our understanding of what information is accessible in different languages. And also looking at it through an equity lens. So who has access to the content, who's reading the content, and who's creating it. And lastly, we're obviously concerned with infrastructure and computing resources. And with that, I will hand it over to Diego, who will start talking about some of these resources that are available.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you to all the Data Umbrella team for inviting us. We are super excited to be here. So let me uh, give you a like brief intro in terms of the resources. So I will briefly try to touch in resources, data, and tools that you can use to work with Wikipedia data. Because basically, as Mel explained, we rely a lot in open source and we believe in open knowledge. But so if you want to contribute back to Wikipedia, there's a plenty of different resources that you can use. But maybe the problem is that there are so huge amount of resources that sometimes it's difficult to navigate all these resources. So I will try to point some of the most important or the ones that I consider the most relevant resources, and also try to explain you how you can connect all these resources and how you can extract as much as possible of them. So I will be talking about how you can get statistics, how you can get data, put you some pointers to some Python libraries, APIs, and different kind of endpoints with APIs and data that you can use from the Wikimedia Foundation. So let me start explaining a bit a set of concepts that will be useful for working with this data. And here you have an example of one Wikipedia page in English. This is the Wikipedia page about Sapienza University. This was the last university where I gave this talk. I usually update this thing with the place that I'm giving the talk. And this is what people normally think when they think about Wikipedia. They go, most of our readers comes from Google, so they go directly to a given article, and this is what they say. But here there's much more information than just the article and information that you as data scientists can use. So this is the regular article, but if you go to the top of any Wikipedia page, you will see in English this view history. This will change depending on the language, but like the name of this. In the view history, you can see every revision that was created on this page. So what is a revision? In the Wikipedia world, we call revision a given version of the article. So every version, we call that a revision, and that you can access through this user interface. And then I will show you you can access this directly programmatically. So you have the concept of a page. Page will be, in this case, Sapienza University of Rome. And you have the concept of a revision, that is a version with a timestamp and with the specific content that you have about that page. You can edit that page, and maybe if you have already contributed to Wikipedia, and if you can contribute in the data science space, this is one way for sure to contribute back. But if you want to write on Wikipedia, there's a visual editor, but most of the people use directly what is called Wikitext, that is the markup language, like Markdown or like LaTeX. But this is the markup language that we use to write Wikipedia. And this is pretty useful to understand, because then later when you want to extract information from this content, if you study a bit of Wikitext, and you can search here, for example, I have the sheet of Wikitext that will explain you different kind of markers that we use. So, for example, how you write a link on Wikipedia, or how you add this is an internal link, this is an external link, or how you add a reference. All these things you will find. And the concept that you need to remember here is Wikitext. So Wikipedia is written in Wikitext. Some people ask why you don't write in Markdown, why you don't write in LaTeX. The main reason that we don't write in Markdown is that Wikitext is a language that was created like 20 years ago. I'm not sure when Markdown started, but it's the historical language that has been developing and has a lot of special tags that are very useful in the Wikipedia world. The other thing that you have in every page, it's what we call the talk page. And in the talk page is the place where people discuss things that are not specifically content itself. So it's not if you have a doubt or you think that something is wrong, but you are not sure and you want to start a discussion about the page, you can go to this talk page and edit there. Also, a lot of meta data about the page is added there. One thing that people use talk pages for is for assessing the quality of the page. Especially in English Wikipedia, almost all pages has some manual annotations that tell you what is the quality that the community considers that page. And this is what we, in the Wikipedia world, what we call namespaces. So if you code, you know what is a namespace in I don't know, in Python or in C or in your preferred program language. In Wikipedia, when we talk about namespace, we are talking about a given page will have their main namespace that will be the article content, but you will have what we call namespace one, that is the talk page, and there's other namespace like user namespaces and other things like that. So it's very interesting to look to the talk page because you will find this kind of meta information. And for example, if you want to train an algorithm with Wikipedia content and you want that that content is high quality, you will need to learn a bit about these different classes that we have for content. Nowadays, this is the quality score that the community uses for assessing the quality of articles. This changes from language to language. In French, they have, for example, a different rates. In other languages, like in Arabic, they follow the same that in English. This will change. But in general, you can go to the feature articles. These feature articles are articles that are considered high quality, like encyclopedic quality. Also, you have like the importance, but this is a bit different thing. And you can see that the feature articles are just few of them. So we have in total, when we create this snapshot, we had 6.5 million almost articles, and just 6,000 are considered super high quality. So there's a lot of work to be done to keep to allow Wikipedia to arise full encyclopedic quality. And usually the bottom class is tabs that are basically placeholders to say an article should exist about this and put some very basic information. And this is the most usual article quality that you will find in Wikipedia. So it's very important to do this kind of filtering when you try, for example, to train your NLP algorithm on Wikipedia. Be aware that high quality articles would be just few of them. This is what I was talking about, namespaces. So, and this is maybe the most usual mistake or error that we find when people is trying to deal with our data. They don't understand these different ideas of namespaces. So basically, if you want to work with content, you need to filter your query or your API call, that we will see some of them later, by namespace, and just use namespace 0. This is again something that you need to double check depending on the language that you are working with. I would say that to the best of my knowledge, namespace 0 will be always the main article, and namespace 1 will be always the talk page. But then you have other things like user pages, or the talk about a user, or you have the Wikipedia. This is where people discuss things about, for example, policies. This will be the namespace 4 in English, but in other languages this can change. So for example, here you have in Portuguese, and you can see that, I don't know, help, that is ajuda, it's the namespace 12. So you can check this namespace list in your preferred language, but something that you need to be aware. If you are just looking for content, you can safely assume that it's always a namespace 0. So a quick reminder, because I need to do this introduction to show you some of the tools. So remember that when we talk about an article or a page, we are talking about a Wikipedia entry, a revision, a specific version. Wikitext is the markup language. Templates, I haven't talked about this, but it's basically macros that are used to create, for example, info boxes on Wikipedia. Then you have MediaWiki, that is the software behind Wikipedia. So MediaWiki will be the equivalent for a blog, like WordPress can be the software for a given blog. MediaWiki is the software that we use for Wikipedia, and you can have MediaWiki not only in Wikipedia or Wikimedia projects, but there's a lot of people that use MediaWiki for their own purposes. You have namespaces, that is what I just explained, and you have editions. We usually use this to refer for a specific project. So the English edition is one edition, the Spanish edition is one edition, the Japanese edition is another edition. So with all these concepts in mind, I want to go now to explain you a bit about the tools, and try to don't get confused, because you will hear a lot of MediaWiki, Wikidata, Wiki project. There are many different things. I will explain in a moment what is Wikidata, and also a project It's also another way to refer to languages. And a wiki project, it's a group of users that works in a specific area. So for example, wiki project Latin America is a group of users that organize themselves to write about Latin America. So I won't expect that you learn all the things now. Just be careful when you start listening and reading things about Wikipedia, because you will see a lot of concepts that can be confusing or misleading, and you need to go and search for the exact definition. Don't expect that just contractions of things like Wikipedia data and Wikidata will be the same. Okay, let's go to how to access content. That is maybe one of the most important things. So if you want to access the full content of Wikipedia or the textual content of Wikipedia, you have mainly two ways to do it. One is the XML dumps that are creating in a regular base. I think twice a month we create one XML dump. And here it's important that, and this you can find in this address, dumps.wikimedia.org. And it's as pointed here, an XML resource. And the important thing that you need to keep in mind here is that you will have two types of dumps. You will have the dump that is historical. That means that for every article, you will have the full history of the article. What means the full history? That you will have every revision, every version of an article. So if you want to do studies that are, for example, about the evolution of a given article, you need to work with the historical dump. To give you an idea, I think nowadays the dump for English Wikipedia should be around, the historical one should be around 30, 40 gigabytes. But if you just want to have one version per article, that is the last version, the last revision at the moment of the dump creation, you can download the current dump. And you will have one dump per project, so or one dump per edition. So you can get the current dump for the English Wikipedia, or you can get the current dump for the Spanish Wikipedia, or you can get the historical dump from a given language. So this is usually what is recommended if you want to, for example, I don't know, again, train an NLP algorithm that needs a lot of data. You can go with some of them. If you want to study things that are more like a long time, the recommended is historical one, but it's much bigger. The other way that, and this, you just go here to dumps, you click there, and you start downloading stuff. The other way to work with this and to get content is to use the API. There are a lot of actions that you can do with the API, but you can and you can go and check more about the MediaWiki API. But one of the things that you can do is to get the content itself. So, for example, here I have the call to get the machine learning content. If you write that, you will get with a lot of schemas here. But at some point, if you manage, and we will provide code for you to work with this later, but you can get the actual content of the article. That comes in Wikitext. So if you want to transform this in plain text, you need a parser for doing that. There's plenty of parsers. You can search for parsers, but remember that this will come in Wikitext. And this is what I was mentioning about templates. So for example, all the things that are in square brackets, it's content. For example, this is a short description. This is probably creating an info box of what you will see in this case, the machine learning article. Okay, so remember, you can use the dumps. That requires download a couple of gigabytes, probably 30, 40 if you want to work in several languages. This is the way to go, but it's expensive in the beginning, and also you need to have processing power to work with that. Later, I will show you how you can do this with directly in our servers, but this you can keep in your server too. Or if you want to get, let's say, a small number of articles, and when I say a small number, maybe 20,000 articles, 100,000 articles, you can go with the API. It's important to say that the APIs are not, they don't have any query limit. For example, if you work with Twitter, you know that you can do, I don't know, 100 something calls per period of time for time window. In the case of Wikipedia, there's no that limit, but yeah, if the server thinks that you are trying to do a DDoS attack, it will shut you down. So try to be polite when you use the API, but there's no predetermined limit. To work with this data, and there's a Python package that is called the MediaWiki Utilities that will explain you how to deal with these different kind of data sources. And for example, you will have parsers, you will have ways to directly interact from Python with the API, so you won't need to write the full call. Uh, Here and this is in the links that I share here. You have a full notebook that will explain you how to use some of these tools. I can go later if you are interested in a specific tool. We can go later. My goal now is to give you a like overview, and then with the questions we can go deeper in some of these tools. Another way to interact with content, it's what we call the SQL replicas. And the SQL replicas are a super cool resource, in my opinion, because basically this gives you metadata about a Wikimedia project. And specifically Quarry, it's a web interface that will allow you to interact with this data. So Quarry is basically a web interface that it's connected to these servers, and that allows you to do SQL queries on Wikipedia. So in this case, in this search, this person was looking for in the French Wikipedia. You can see here that we are using French Wikipedia. It's looking for external links that end on .com and is counting. So the most linked .com in the French Wikipedia at the moment of this query, that was in September 2020, was Google, and then IMDb, and then YouTube. And you say, okay, yeah, this how we learn all the schemas and all the the table description for this. One cool thing about Quarry is that it's collaborative. So you can search and people publish their queries. So for example, here, sorry, using Google, I can let me see if I can increase the size here. Yeah. So for example, here I'm looking to Quarry and looking for queries that are related with bots. Or you can search for, maybe there are people that was doing things about books on Quarry. So you can search here and you will find queries that will explain you something about books. And that's pretty cool because you don't need to learn all the schemas. You can search for similar queries and modify for your use case. As I said, all these things is collaborative, and here you have, for example, all the recent queries that has been done in Quarry. These are all the queries, and these are the published queries. So when someone considers that create something that is really useful, you can select to publish this. And the only thing that you need to use Quarry is to log in with your Wikimedia account. You can create your Wikimedia. So that means created an account on Wikipedia that you can create completely anonymous. You don't even need to provide an email if you don't want. So just go put your username, and if it's free, add your password, and you will have access to this resource. Another very easy way to interact with Wikipedia data is this stats.wikimedia.org. This was created by the analytics team that now is called the data engineering team in the Wikimedia Foundation, and that basically allows you to get a lot of statistics about different aspects of Wikipedia. So for example, if you are interested on the number of edits that has been done in Wikipedia in the last, let's say, in the last 2 years, or in the whole history, you will just come here and get that information. This is for all wikis, but you can filter. And for example, if you are, I don't know, connecting from Pakistan and you want to see the Urdu Wikipedia, or in other places that people speak Urdu, you can see how many different edits has been happening on that wiki. And it's not only that you can visualize this, but you have a download button here that you can use, and this will download this data in a CSV format. In the Wikimedia Statistics, you will find a lot of different things. I have some examples already prepared here, like yeah, the number of edited pages, and you don't only have the number of edited pages, but you have information about the editors. As you know, in almost all Wikipedias, you can have anonymous editors, or you can see which of them were done by bots, by self-declared bots, and split that information, and all the things you can download directly from the statistics page. Another thing that could be very useful is to use the page views API. The page views APIs allows you to download information about readers, so the amount of readers that are visiting a given project in Wikipedia, and you can do this with the API directly here. So, and again, in the code that I share with you, you will have examples of how to do this directly from your notebook. But also, if you want to explore stuff, you can directly go to this tool that the community built for exploring a number of page views. In this example, I was looking to the number of page views for different concepts related to um, machine learning. You can see that random forest, for example, was much popular than gradient boosting between 2015 and 2018. And there's a lot of things that you can do with the page views analysis. You can get information about what is happening in society. So, for example, here you have the number of page views in the English Wikipedia about fake news, and you can see, you can ask yourself what happened in 2016 that the fake news article was not very important, and in a couple of months jumps from less than 200 page views to almost 100,000 page views. Uh, and this you can use. So people say this is similar to Google Trends. Yeah, but this is based on an open source pipeline that explains you exactly why this data is coming here and how the data is coming here. You can see also what is popular in a given moment. You can ask, for example, what is the most popular article in a given project. Here is in July 2018. At that time, there was the Soccer World Cup, so that was the most important article at that moment. But you can see a lot of different statistics. You can go and play with this and start, I don't know, getting things about the number of views that, for example, the full English Wikipedia has, or other kind of information. And here I'm giving the explanation with English Wikipedia, but if I can compare, for example, English Wikipedia with Spanish Wikipedia, I could just add this here and show you the difference in page views. And again, here you can download this data in different formats. You can even download the image or get a permanent link to embed this information in your, for example, in your web page. You can also compare things across languages. So, for example, these were the page views about the former president of Bolivia. And here you can see that in that case, Evo Morales was really popular in Spanish Wikipedia, as can be expected, because in Bolivia people speak Spanish, but also has a lot of page views in English Wikipedia and a bit less in French, in Portuguese, in Russian. And you get also how you can read Evo Morales' names in Russia in this case. In the Wikimedia Statistics, you also can get the page views by country. So this is aggregated information about the page views. So this will help you to understand what is the most popular country for a given project. So, for example, in the Spanish Wikipedia, people would expect maybe that Spain is the most popular, or the one that is receiving more visitor from. But you can see that also Mexico, that, if I'm not wrong, is the largest Spanish-speaking country. It's the one attracting more views on that specific Wikipedia. So when I said that if you speak Urdu, you can see, if you're in Pakistan, it's maybe because you speak Urdu, but we can double check very quickly here. You can see this about editors, and you can see this about people visiting Wikipedia. Sorry, for some reason this is not loading. That's why I shouldn't do live demos, but you can go there and check later. Um, Another interesting data set that you can work with is this click data set. I think this is a very unique resource. I don't know who else is sharing this kind of data. This is basically will explain you from where visitors are coming from and where they are going to. So, sorry, in that direction. So, for example, here you have again the Sapienza University of Rome in English Wikipedia. So this is in the center of this graph, and you can see that people was coming from search. So this is mainly people coming from Google, but also people that was going to La Sapienza University was coming from Mario Draghi, a politician, and then when they're in Sapienza University, most of them are going out. That's why you see smaller numbers here. Like usually less than 20% of people usually clicks on next article on Wikipedia, but you can see where people is going to from a given article. You have this specific tool that was created by one outreach intern, Munisa, that is still working with us as a contractor research engineer, and you can start exploring things here. So, for example, if you want to change this and see uh, machine learning, for example, you will see from where people is coming from and going to in the machine learning. So people that goes to the machine learning page in Wikipedia is coming, some of them from deep learning, some of them from artificial intelligence, and usually most of them comes uh, from the search. And then from machine learning, they are going again to artificial intelligence, supervised learning, so on and so forth. Here you have the sources of traffic. You have set of visualizations that you can use, and you can even compare this month by month to see how this has been evolving in time. So this is the click stream. And again, this is a visualization tool that we have, but you can download the raw data. And I think nowadays we have this at least for, I'm sure that we have for 5 languages, but I think this has been extended to 10 languages nowadays. Okay, with all this information, you can say, okay, now I am expert in Wikipedia. I know from where I can get page views, where I can get statistics, where I can get the content of the pages. And maybe you want to, as this the title of this talk, you want to contribute back. And one thing that we offer to you if you want to contribute back is this page called Wikimedia Toolforge, that is basically a hosting a hosting system for Wikipedia related tools. So if you subscribe to this, you will be able to create an account that will give you access to a server where you can SSH and you can host your tool. This community is using a lot, so imagine that you want to do something that helps people to discover content about, I don't know, a given web page or a given subject, and you train your algorithm and you want to host that. You don't need to go and pay for a hosting service. You will have your hosting service in the Wikimedia Toolforge. You can also, if you are not building yet a tool, you can also use PAWS. PAWS is so it's similar what nowadays Google has called Google Colab, but this you have for Wikipedia. We created this before Google Colab was released. And the most important thing about this is not only that you have this resource to, for example, explore content. And very interesting thing about PAWS is that all the resources that I mentioned are already loaded on those machines. So that's true for Toolforge and that's true for PAWS, that you don't need to download the dumps. For example, if you want to analyze all the English Wikipedia and you don't want to download 30 gigabytes, you can just go to PAWS and read documentation there. You will find the pointers and the folders where the different dumps are. So you can train your algorithms or do your research and without needing downloading anything. Both PAWS and Toolforge are shared resources. So keep in mind if you use this, is that you are taking resources from the commons. So be conscious, don't run things that are not related with Wikipedia, and don't take all the resources, because you are basically sharing with all the rest of the community. Okay, yeah, that's a very like brief, and I already used like 30 minutes for that overview of different kind of tools. I'll be happy to later answer questions about any of these specific sources or tools or resources. But if you want to learn more about how to contribute back to Wikipedia, Emily will explain you a bit some of the different channels that we have for that.
Great, thanks, Diego. That was a really nice overview of a lot of the tools and data that are available. So I'm going to highlight one other resource. This is the developer portal, and this was recently launched by the developer advocacy team. And this is intended to be a centralized entry point. So think of this as your front door for finding technical documentation and community resources. So the goal of this is to make it easier for developers and contributors to find the information they need to do a certain task or a project, to find what tools and technologies are available, and to learn how to get started in technical areas. So one of the buttons here that I want to highlight is Connect with the Community. And this is a really nice way to get to know other developers and contributors, get your questions answered. There are links to Stack Overflow, for example, for where you can ask questions, IRC channels. So there's a lot of different communication pathways, whatever your preference is, that you can connect with others and get your questions answered. And so to kind of sum up, we presented a lot of information here today, but this is kind of a roadmap where you can kind of take your next step. So if you're interested in sharing a finding, an algorithm, or an insight, we encourage you to submit to Wiki Workshop. So this is our flagship research event of the year. It's typically held in April in collaboration as a workshop as part of the web conference. It's been virtual the last few years. Historically, it was in person. It remains to be seen what next year's edition will look like, so stay tuned there. And this is also just a great place to hang out. So say you're not at a point yet where you have your own research to share. It's a really nice community event where you can learn more about the types of research in this space and potentially meet new collaborators. If you're interested in building a tool to help Wikipedians, as Diego shared, you can host it on Toolforge. If you're interested in trying to reuse, fix, or improve our algorithms, there is the link to the GitLab repo. If you want to learn more about our research projects, things that staff at WMF are working on with interns and formal collaborators, you can check it out on Meta. And I also want to highlight briefly that last year we launched a new funding program. So this is called the Research Fund. And this past year, we're able to provide grants of up to $50,000 US to researchers around the world who are doing innovative work on the Wikimedia projects that has potential to positively impact different communities in the movement. So you can learn more there. We also have 2 internship programs. So I've mentioned interns a couple times. Just briefly, the foundation hosts interns through both Outreachy and Google Summer of Code. These are programs that you might already be familiar with. We also host interns internally through our team, through the foundation, outside of these 2 mechanisms. And if there are specific questions about Outreachy or Google Summer of Code, we can certainly answer them at the end. And I do want to highlight again the international nature of the work that we do. So we're really proud to have hosted interns from 14 countries so far. So if you're outside of the US, this is a really great opportunity to get more involved in research with us. And lastly, I really want to thank you for joining us today for our talk and encourage you to stay in touch. Our research team hosts monthly office hours. These are held on Jitsi. Typically, they are the first Tuesday of the month. And we have rotating times to accommodate people from all over the world. And so this is a great opportunity. They're very informal. If you are just getting started with research and have a question about how to get going, need clarification about any of the tools or resources that we've provided today, this is a great place for you to come meet members of the team and get your questions answered. We also have a mailing list that is linked on the slide. We have an IRC channel where, again, you can drop in and ask questions, and you're welcome and encouraged to follow us on Twitter, where we highlight much of our programming, as well as new innovative research in this space that we're paying attention to. So thanks again for joining today. At this point, we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much for the great presentation. If you have any questions, you can write them on the question and answer tab, and our speakers will be happy to answer. Additionally, all these links that Diego and Emily have been talking about are in the description of the Meetup event. We had shared them 2 days ago. So if you want to access any of the links, you can just go to our Meetup event and access the links in the description.
I think everything was super clear.
It was so clear there are no questions.
Yeah, let me just encourage people to, we put some links to code with like examples I've seen. I've seen some of the talks. I know that some talks here are very like technical, like giving step-by-step explanation on how to use a given tool. We have so many different resources that I'll always like to like give the overview, because then with the pointers you can find documentation. We have this big community that is always like answering very quickly. And I will encourage people that really wants to work with the data to first open an account if you don't have an account in Wikipedia, and then you will have access to, and especially you can open a developer account in one of the links that Emily showed. And with that, you will have access to all these resources. For some of them, you don't even need that account. And also you will have access to this huge community of people that is working on this. There's examples in the material that we share with notebooks for doing different kind of things directly from a Jupyter notebook. You can, for example, get the content, the page views, even to do these queries that I showed from Quarry, you can consume directly from your notebook. There's explanation of how to do that. And for sure, we will be happy to receive you in our research office hours to discuss more about these projects. And the difficult thing with Wikipedia sometimes is to start to get this, because you can be kind of amused or freezed by the amount of different data sources. But once you start digging a bit, you will find that there's a huge community very interested in supporting you. We as a team are also very interested in supporting community. And there's all these events also for gathering with people. So we are always happy to receive questions and to interact, help, and also receive feedback and be helped by other people that is working in this space.
If I could ask a question, it's on the internship. I know Outreach is about to open the second application for this year in August. So for an overview for the folks joining us, what initially does someone has to have in terms of knowledge? For example, I know some in the outreach will maybe write a description on maybe a language you should know, if you should know Markdown, if you should know Wikitext, maybe Python, etc., depending on the projects that are available. So if you can just share any background knowledge that will be helpful for someone who wants to start contributing to Wikimedia.
Yes. So there are different, very different ways to contribute. I would say that specifically for the research team, because there are other teams and there's a lot of different points of collaboration or opportunities for working with us that you can find with other teams. I would say specifically for the research team, usually if you want to do something that is related with computer science, we write, I would say, 99% of our code in Python. So knowing Python is usually a very important thing. We have had some outreach projects like the one that I show with the WikiNav, um, that is basically was creating a tool, and for that was I don't remember exactly which was the framework that was used there, but was user facing, so front end knowledge. We are pretty open. The most important thing for us is that every single line of code that we write is it's open sourced, and in terms of abilities, we also do some studies that are mixed, not only computer science, but there's a lot of social issues that we're interested on. So some qualitative research skills are also welcome for some specific projects. I don't know, Emily, if you want to add something on this.
Sure. Yeah, I'll just mention briefly. I have an intern this summer. She's not associated with Outreachy or Google Summer of Code, but she comes from a journalism background. So she came in without any coding experience or any quantitative skills. And she's been working with me on some literature reviews as well as some program evaluation, because she has a background in program evaluation and qualitative research. And we did actually spend some time teaching her some introductory Python as well. So certainly if you don't feel like you have a lot of experience coding or data science, there are still potential opportunities for us depending on what we're working on at the time.
Okay, so Emily, I think you have seen Leonard's question on how data science communities in Africa can participate. If you can expound on that a little bit.
Sure. So Leonard's question was, how can communities like Data Science Zimbabwe participate to build content and build and develop for indigenous languages in conjunction with the foundation? So I dropped a resource in the chat. It's called Wiki Mentor Africa. This is a community-driven initiative. It's not part of the foundation, but it is an opportunity for folks with some data science experience in Africa to get mentoring from experienced contributors to the Wikimedia projects. So that might be a nice way to get started. Diego, I don't know if you have anything that you'd want to add to that question.
No, there are different initiatives. I remember this big research project that it was a community project too, but that received they produced a research basically showing how language models tends to like popular language models. I don't remember exactly which one was, so I don't want to. I will risk. I think they test fast text and something else to show that basically they add a lot of languages that says to be supported, and there was all this Pan-African community of data scientists and researchers measuring the real quality of those embeddings using Wikipedia data. These kind of projects are usually run they are community initiatives, but there are also support from us, not to that specific one, but there's also support from us in this Wikimedia research grant. That is this program that Emily already mentioned, that I think could be of interest. If you have like an idea, you can get this kind of support also from us. And we have this big initiative on knowledge gaps. Most of the team works in the research team works on knowledge gaps, where we are trying to measure to the different kind of gaps One of them is in languages, and one of them is clearly also in like this geographical bias. We know, and we have papers published about that Wikipedia, unfortunately, is still very biased towards some specific regions, and everything that we can do to address those gaps, it's of interest of the foundation and for the team. So we are happy to receive ideas or to support projects that are being run to address these issues.
Reshma is asking if your internship programs are full-time or part-time.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that they're all full-time, but they are short in duration. So they're usually about 12 weeks.
Yes, my experience has been that. I think in very specific cases we have part-time, but usually we were full-time. Exactly what confirm, at least the ones that I work with, confirm what Emily said.
Yeah, I guess that's all the questions we've had. Is there anything else you would love to add?
Just to mention, and I was thinking, I was reading like Leonard's question again about the how can communities like data science Zimbabwe participate to build content. I'm thinking also that because we mentioned a lot of community initiatives, there are also outside of research teams that specifically works in connecting with community. One is the community liaisons team, so you can contact them also to discuss more things with them. And I just saw that in the chat, Emily also put the contact of the Wiki Mentor Africa project that she already mentioned.
Yeah, I'll just mention that we've given you a lot of information today. So it's going to take some time to digest, particularly if you're new to this space. So just my encouragement is to have patience and grace with yourself as you're learning your way around this ecosystem. And I also want to highlight that if you're interested in learning more about the community, that Wikimania is coming up next month. And I just dropped the link in the chat. And that is the largest global event for the Wikimedia movement. It will take place primarily virtually, although it sounds like there will be some in-person components as well. So that's another nice way to get to know more about the movement and get to meet other contributors and developers. And part of Wikimania will be a hackathon. So that is a nice place to get started as well.
Thank you, Emily and Diego. I think we don't have any other question. As Reshma has been posting on the chat, this video will be recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel. The links to all the resources that have been shared today will also be included, hopefully, in our timestamps or in our posts as we share about the event. So look out for that. We will also post when the video is up and let you know that it's available and you can come back to it and listen to it again if you want to go through it again. And with that, I will end the recording, and I would like to thank Emily and Diego for their time. Hopefully, if we get enough time, we can invite you again to go through other components about Wikimedia and the whole organization. Yeah, so thank you for joining us. I will stop recording and we'll let you know when the video is up.